Hi friends, Mindy here. I have a start to finish of a journal that I'm going to be doing today. This is actually part one of a series. I'm just going to be creating the cover today. Originally, I thought I was going to do this video in real time, which is, you'll see me, I'm talking to the camera there. That just did not work out. So I needed to trim out a few things, like when I broke my rotary cutter on camera, and also just speed it up a little bit. But I did try to keep most everything in here so you could kind of see what's happening. So here is the box that I'm using. I have just opened this box up. Because of the bright colors on the outside, I'm actually going to flip this onto the inside so that I have the craft side facing out, if that makes sense. So the first thing that I'm doing is I'm starting off with trimming off all of these little flaps. So I know just from using this kind of box before that I like the size of this box. It's roughly, I don't know, like 5 by 7. It's just a good size. And for the what I want to use this journal for, this is going to be the perfect size. So all I'm doing is using a craft knife with my ruler here. It's got a steel edge on it, so you want to make sure that you have a ruler that's either a steel ruler or one that has an edge like this Tim Holtz ruler does. And if you have a really thick chipboard, obviously this is not that because it's just a box. But if you're working with a thicker piece of chipboard, you really want to make sure you're just doing like shallow passes. It will just give you cleaner edges on here. Conversely, if you're worried about this not being thick enough, this chipboard, you could certainly double this up, put 2 boxes on top of each other, glue them together, and then trim them as one. And that will give you a thicker piece of chipboard to work with. For what I'm doing today and my purposes, this is perfect. It's plenty. So I'm just going to gather up my little pieces here. And like I said, I tried to keep this mostly in like in real time, in the sense that this is everything that I would be doing. You can see now I'm flipping it back on itself, but I need to retrain this spine just a little bit. So I'm going back over this with a bone folder. A bone folder is a super helpful tool anytime you are creating a journal. And I would suggest finding one that's like an actual bone folder, like the rigid ones. There are some out on the market that are kind of flimsy and they don't really work for bookbinding this way. So they'll work for some things, but when you really need to get in there, you kind of need one that's more rigid. So this is the fabric that I am going to be using today. It's a thinner fabric. There's a lot of different ways that you can adhere fabric to a journal cover. So a traditional way would be creating book cloth out of it. Obviously, I am not going to be doing that process today. Let me know if down the road you'd like to see some other ways you can cover. But for what my purpose is today, I'm going to be using double-sided tape. I'm going to be using this scrapbook.com version because it's nice and sticky, and just going to go through here and cover this. So another option that you would have is something I think I've actually shown on my channel before, where you take like Heat and Bond or Wonder Under, and it's a fusible adhesive that you iron on to your fabric, and then and I usually, when I do it that way, will iron it just directly onto the chipboard. Some people will then iron on a piece of tissue, and that makes it really more like traditional book cloth, and that actually allows you to use like a PVA glue, which would be a more traditional way to cover a journal in terms of like actually using book cloth and PVA glues. But for my intents and purposes for just creating a little junk journal, this is going to work fine. So you can see I pulled out another size of this double-sided tape and just covered this cover. And then I burnished that down really well. Just want to make sure that all of my adhesive is nicely glued. And this is the point where I'm getting ready to try to cut this piece of fabric, and I did something to my rotary cutter, and I broke my rotary cutter. I don't know. It was just a thing. So anyway, you can see this big piece. I'm just going to be trimming this down a little bit. Some of that you're not going to see on camera because, like I said, I did cut a few minutes out of that. And I do have my video obviously on 2 times the speed. So this cover process did take me, I don't know, 30 or 45 minutes, but that was also included, breaking a rotary cutter and looking for things also. So it's not a hard or, super long process. I am trying to keep that one particular square in the front of my cover. That's how I had it in my mind. I do get a little bit crooked, but again, this is just a journal that I'm going to be using personally. I may end up having to adjust it depending on how much it irritates me that it's not actually straight on there. But you can kind of see I'm trying to dry fit this and make sure that I have everything sort of where I want before I actually go in and start gluing everything down. My idea, again, was to have that big black, kind of bold square in the front lower corner, actually. But it ends up where it ends up, and that's fine. So I'm going to use just a little Tim Holtz, the retractable one, to help me get the release papers off. And this is where I'm trying to line this up, but because of that, the adhesive is so sticky, part of the fabric dropped down onto it, and there was just no going back. So I'm just going to go through now and pull up these other pieces of adhesive here. I'm going to stick this one back down where it was just overlapping a little bit. And then you want to be careful not to create too much tension when you're doing this. That is one thing I would say. Like, you don't want to pull and stretch the fabric because it will pull on the cover, actually. So, you want it definitely to be nice and flat, but you don't want to pull on the fabric, especially if the stretchier it is, the more risk you run doing that. So I'm going to go around all of the edges on the inside here with that same scrapbook.com double-sided adhesive. This is just in a smaller width, and this is going to be the way that I'm going to create the wrap for the cover. So I am trimming it down a little bit. I just have a little bit too much. I know some people like to say that when you're wrapping something, you have like 1/4 of an inch or whatever. For me, I just always feel better with a little bit larger amount of fabric. And you can see here, I'm cutting out a little triangle almost out of the corners. So I'm kind of doing this at an angle, not directly to the corner. You don't want to cut right at the corner. You want to come away from the corner just a little bit. You can cut straight across there too if you want. I just find the mitering looks a little bit better if you kind of do it at this angle. And then the rule of thumb is kind of, as thick as your chipboard is, you want double that width from the edge of the corner to the end of the fabric, if that makes sense. So you do want to leave a little bit of space so that it will fold over nicely and create that beautiful, mitered edge. And then the other thing that I'm going to do is I want to get rid of a little bit of the bulk here in my spine. Because I have inverted this cover, it makes it so that there's a little bit of some extra almost chipboard. It's hard to explain, but it just makes it a little wobbly. So I just went back through with my my bone folder and kind of creased that area back on the spine. And now I'm going to take some other scissors here and just cut the tiniest little sliver of a triangle at the beginning and the end of the spine. So, right where those folds are. And this is just really in an effort to keep as much bulk out of the gutter of the spine as I possibly can. And a lot of that is because I have done the spine the way that I have. So I'm just trying to kind of make sure that this journal doesn't want to just stay open all the time. So whenever you're wrapping, you always want to do kind of opposite sides. So if you're going to do the top and the bottom, do the top and the bottom first, and then the short side on the right. And then don't go clockwise around, if that makes sense. It just ends up with a neater look this way. So I am doing the top and the bottom first, and then I'm going to do this side piece. Now you can see that I only have adhesive here where that double-sided adhesive is. So those corner wings, like the little wing parts that make up the mitering, need a little bit of adhesive. So I am going to just add a little bit of this liquid glue. This is art glitter glue. It just dries really quickly. You could get around this if you actually applied your adhesive to the flap, like the actual fabric. The reason I don't do that is because then you have to trim it, with the angles and everything. And I just find this to be faster. There's a lot of different ways to do anything, really. So this is just kind of my cheat way to do this fairly quickly. So I'm going now to the other side and doing that same thing, top and bottom. Going to add a little bit of glue here. I had a glue explosion. I don't know what happened with my glue. It literally, I barely caught it before there was like a huge mountain of glue all over my my cover. So there was just a lot of things happening, which is why this video ended up being essentially a voiceover instead of in real time like I had intended. But let me know if you'd like to see part 2 in real time, where I'm going to be doing the signatures and sewing them into this journal. That will be part 2. Like I said, let me know if you'd like to see that in real time, or if you prefer the shorter voiced over versions. So you can see how everything has come together now. I need to find a end paper. Because of the size of this journal, this will kind of give you an idea of the size. This is the, I think it's like 6x10, the backdrops from Tim Holtz. And I just loved this one with the keyboard on the inside. And I thought it went perfectly because it's, black and just very striking against kind of the bold teal and black and gray and white of the cover. And so I want to use this, but I really don't want to lose this strip along the bottom. I'm going to try to save it so that I can use it in other things. So I'm just making sure that where I cut this is actually going to be just above that line of text on the bottom, and it actually ended up working out perfectly. So I can save that and use that for another project, which I'm thrilled about. And then I didn't want this to be kind of like to the left or to the right. So I went ahead and centered this. And normally if I didn't have a design, if the design wasn't something so specific, this part wouldn't really matter. But I'm just taking equal amounts off of each edge, which will actually give me 2 other neat little pieces to play with down the road, because they'll have those like brackets on them. But I just felt like this was the better way. I think it would have made me a little bit crazy to have it kind of off-centered like that. So having this, keyboard kind of centered is going to be better for my brain, even though a lot of it's going to be covered up because I'm going to have the signatures and everything in there. But it just, in my brain, it works better. So I cut this down just with my trimmer, but there's a couple little parts that need some tweaking. So I'm pulling out my other cutter here because I need to cut like a sliver, and my other trimmer does not do slivers very well, but that trimmer does. So I have different tools for different things, and that's just one of those ones. When I need to like a very fraction bit of an amount, that is the one I will use. So now I'm just applying some more of this scrapbook.com adhesive to the backside of this paper. This, you'll notice, is the smaller size now. I'm not that big 4-inch one because I am actually officially at the end of that roll. So I'm not sure that I will buy that again. It's convenient in one way, but it's a little bit fiddly in another. So this 2-inch, I think this is 2 inches, 3 inches maybe. But this is like just a good kind of generic size, although I did get my adhesive off the page, so I just trimmed that down a little bit. And for a side note, these scissors that I'm using to cut the adhesive is actually Simon Says Stamp, and they are non-stick scissors, and they work great for cutting these kinds of things. So I usually use my Tim Holtz, but I have gunked up one of my Tim Holtz scissors even after trying to clean it multiple times. And they're kind of hard to clean because of the serrated edge on them. So these Simon Says Stamp scissors are actually really, really helpful for this, because then I can clean as the adhesive kind of builds up on it, which it will do anyway. Even though they're nonstick, it's really easy to wipe off. So anyway, that was a tirade about scissors, but I'm passionate about my tools, I guess. Anyway, you can see I just did the same process where I pulled just a little bit of the release paper off, and then started to kind of, adhere that to my cover, and then pulled the rest of the paper, and then I went over that with a bone folder. So you can see it's pretty rigid at this point. And so I need to really help the spine. So I'm going to take my bone folder. This is what I was talking about, where you need a good bone folder for this, because I'm applying a good bit of pressure. Part of the reason I can get away with that is because this Tim Holtz paper is nice and thick. But I really need for this spine to be able to stay close. So I'm just working along here just gently as I fold. I am applying pressure. I'm going back and forth over and kind of scoring this spine. And then when I get it all the way folded over, I'll come along the outside of it with that bone folder. And then I may have to do this a few more times and kind of work with it and just almost like train the spine to close the right way. You can kind of see I'm just kind of squishing it here. It's one of the ways that will help it so that it wants to close the right way, if that makes sense. So one of the other things that I decided to do is to add some of these Tim Holtz book corners on the edges. I just think they kind of add a nice finished look. But you can see how that square is kind of a little bit crooked. I may fix that, or I may just leave it. I haven't quite decided. We'll see. Maybe in video 2 I'll address that, but we'll see how crazy it drives me between now and then. So I'm pulling out all of the things I'm going to need. I have a pair of flat nose pliers, and I am using Helmer 450 quick dry. That's the glue I have. You could use something like Fabri-Tac or something like that. I like this particular glue, but you need a very little amount of this, and you don't even necessarily need to add glue. It just makes me feel better. So I add kind of a drop just right in the corner of it, and then I press it over with my fingers, and then I come back in and kind of really tighten it down with my pliers, just very, very simply around the corners. And I will do that for all 4 corners. The ones I'm using on this have that more like that gunmetal kind of look to them. So I feel like they just really look good with the cover that I'm dealing with. And again, you probably don't even need the glue for these. It just, like I said, makes my brain feel better because I am pressing them down pretty significantly. And also, you'll notice I have a paper towel there because this adhesive likes to leak out of the bottle. And so I'm trying to catch it. So basically what I'm doing is the little bead that starts forming at the tip of this as I'm working is what I actually apply into the book corner. That tells you how little you actually need. And then I'm just keeping my surface clean with the paper towel. And then I have some jewelry pliers that I am using on here to close everything up, and then I will clean up my glue before it gets everywhere. And then that will be it for me. So stay tuned for part 2. Let me know if you like this video. Also, let me know if you want to see that video in fast forward or if you want to see it in real time, and I'll try to do an actual proper, me speaking to the camera instead of a voiceover in that one. But if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And until next time, bye.